first of all, we watched, of course, our very new favorite of this year, AMA Supercross. They were racing in Daytona this weekend, or this past weekend, at the Daytona International Speedway, which was an outdoor track, which was different from the other East Coast tracks we've seen so far. I thought the track was also very interesting. It seems longer and a lot more intricate, a little bit more technically difficult. There's also different types of sand or dirt. They had the dark black Supercross dirt, I guess it's called. Then they had more like a reddish clay. Then they had a softer sand. So it was a lot of different surfaces. It was a very interesting track, though, I thought.
Yeah, it was definitely the longest track that we've seen so far.
Agreed.
By far.
Yes.
I think, 450SX did like the fastest was like a 145 or something like that.
Something around that time. So it was quite long.
And then usually I think the longest that we've seen so far was a little bit over a minute. So quite a lot longer.
Yes.
But I did like it a lot, actually, because I thought it was probably like the most technically advanced or difficult
I see that.
track, just because like the conditions seem to be quite difficult. At the end there were some like really deep ruts in there,
which I also thought was interesting, which I pointed out to you yesterday. Like, you were talking, the commentators were saying like, oh, those ruts are going to be getting so big this time, and I'm like, this has been like an ongoing thing.
This every race.
No. I mean, I feel like the only tracks I don't remember it to be as bad was probably the two Anaheim races.
So the one that we attended?
I mean, the one that we attended, and then Anaheim one, they didn't have these like deep ruts. Like this one, it was a little bit more severe than a lot of the other ones, because this one, sometimes they even got stuck, which has happened before. But they were like, oh yeah, it's really hard once you're in one lane to switch over. And I feel like it's been an ongoing thing, at least for the last couple of races. I just thought it was interesting.
Yes, and what I liked about this track was that when they went over like the tabletop, and they essentially had then two lanes that they could pick from.
Oh yes, I thought that was really cool.
So they had like
too.
one that had, so essentially it evened out. So this kind of depended, I guess, which one you preferred. And I guess maybe also which rut you got into. But yeah, it was kind of cool that you got to see like, so at first one lane got a fast corner, and then it had a slow corner, and then the other one essentially first had a slow corner and then a fast corner.
Exactly. I was like inside lane, outside lane, and then it switched the other way around. But then the cool thing was it ended in like this long straight where they could accelerate out
to the finish line as well. So that was really awesome.
So it was nice. Yeah, I enjoyed that. So it was a fun track to watch. I think one thing that we should bring up is just a quick note about Austin Fornker.
Yes.
Which, of course, as we know, he didn't return this race. We don't know when or if he will be returning to the race.
This season.
Or no, in general. He said he has some thinking to do. Whether or not if these injuries have been signs that maybe this is not what he needs to do.
It would be a bummer because he's so talented.
He's
I understand.
so talented,
this is like back-to-back seasons where he got injured, and this last year's injury was already so bad, and then this one is even worse.
It was so scary. If you didn't see it, we have a little clip of it in our last week's recap video. And then so this week, Austin finally posted a video on socials just telling everybody how he's doing and how he's been the last couple of days, and it was a very emotional video. I recommend watching it. We'll put the link in the description below for you to see. I mean, it was really heartbreaking. I'm glad he's doing well, but it's also, it was really sad to see that he's just injured yet again after having such a nice start into the season. But it was also, in a small way, it was kind of beautiful to see how vulnerable he was and how openly he spoke about the situation. So that was like the bitter sweetness to it. So I'm sad that he didn't get to join us for this weekend, or he won't join us for the rest of the season. But so just a quick shout out to Austin. We wish you a very fast recovery. I hope it goes well for you. And I'm sure, I mean, we will miss you, and lots of other people, I'm sure, will miss him in the next couple of races.
Yes, and then in that same breath, we should probably also talk about Guillaume Ferris, who in practice this past week broke his femur and was not able to attend
Daytona this week.
Yes, which also a bummer, but with him, his injury obviously not being as severe, and hopefully we'll be back sooner than later.
Yes, agreed. So luckily this race was not as accident prone as the last one. If I remember correctly, all the starts that I've seen went over with no big like kerfuffle, my favorite word.
Yeah.
However, the races were still very, very interesting.
Yes.
I think, first of all, let's talk about the 250.
Yes.
The 250 East. We're in the east side, of course, being in Florida. So, and then Tom Vial won from France, which is absolutely amazing. It's his second season in the AMA Supercross world. And then last week was his first time placing on the podium with being third. And so this time he actually won the race, which is huge.
He came in and swooped it. And he did really, really well. After the start, he was a few positions back, but then he just went on a charge and he never left off. And then he ended up winning the race by like almost 5 seconds.
He did absolutely amazing.
I think the bike and the track and him were just in unity.
It worked well together.
It was a really good balance, and he did really, really good. There was also actually a really good fight between second and third place, and I believe they're also
teammates.
Yeah,
exactly. McAdoo and Haymaker.
There was a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, which was very exciting. Like all like an amicable.
Yeah,
like there was
nothing crazy. Like people I don't know, causing any issues within the team. We'll get to stuff like that a little bit later.
but that was really, really nice to see. It was overall a really fun race. Mac Anstey is still currently the leader overall for 250 East. He didn't have quite as good of a race this time, but he remains still overall point leader. I think if I remember correctly, it's by not that big of a margin. They're still fairly close together. So
I did also wanted to say someone that we forgot to mention, Jalik Swole's teammate. So Jalik did actually quite well. He ended up finishing 6th.
Yeah, and he was a little bit further back at the beginning.
Yeah, he was in the double digits.
But he's been he's making his way through them. So I would love to see him have a good start and see what he can do then. Considering this is also Triumph's first season within AMA Supercross.
So Jalik has been doing really, really well. So last race he already placed in the points. This race he placed in the points. However, his teammate Evan Ferry is unfortunately still out due to injury because his first 2 races of the season weren't, The first one he had that bad crash, and then the second one he injured himself during practice. We talked about that last week.
Oh, gotcha. Yes. Indeed,
but he still hasn't recovered. We didn't want to forget about him either.
Of course. But yeah, so the 250 was an exciting event. Definitely, of course, as always, check it out on NBC Motorsports YouTube highlights. We'll put the links as per usual in the description below.
Yeah, especially because I think it's such a different track. Definitely something worth looking into.
Agreed. And which I also like that the tracks are changing quite significantly.
Yes.
Even as a newbie watcher, we notice the difference. And I also enjoy now that we have a couple races under our belt that we can see like when they land a certain way, you're like, ooh, that took some time away from you, that cost you something. So it's nice to, not that we're professionals yet with the sport, but we're like learning little by little. And we're getting familiar, of course, with the different riders, which is nice.
Yes.
So Mac Anstey is currently still team or score leader. Then we have McAdoo right after that.
1 point off.
Yeah, Pierce Brown, Tom Vial, Hayden Deegan. So those are pretty much the top 5 currently. And they're within 3 points.
Yes, they're within 3 points of each other. And then I think the whole like top 10 or like top 7 is like within like 10 points of each other.
Really, really close right now. So I'm excited to definitely see how things evolve. We are planning, just putting this in there quickly, to live stream one of the AMA Supercross races. Like we'll do like a watch party because
we're not obviously broadcasting it. We don't have the rights. That's NBC/Peacock. But we will do like a hangout session. You guys can come and chat while we're watching.
Yeah, we can all watch it at our own homes, and then we'll just be online together.
Yeah, that would be
but
fun.
Yeah, because we love watching it. We're quite animated when we watch it too. I mean, because so much happens.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to the 450. So it was another very interesting race. So we found out going into it that Eli Tomac had won the Daytona race a number of 7 times already, which is absolutely insane.
Yes.
I mean, he's clearly a legend, as we've been learning.
Yes.
But I also love that he is competing up at the top level. Like that we have a couple...
Still in like the end stage of his career, he's still competing at the very top.
Yeah, exactly.
And this race, he was really also a man on a mission.
Oh, yeah.
After the start, he wasn't that far up. And then he was like, nope, this is Daytona. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Get out of my way. And he was on a charge for a long time, and he ended up coming in second.
Which was amazing, especially also because I feel like halfway through the race, his bike started smoking.
Yes.
And it was smoking the whole time of the race. So I feel like there was, at least for me, there was a little bit additional suspense, like whether or not his bike will actually make it, or if it will just like stop at some point.
Yes, well, I think people were trying to gauge while watching it whether or not if it's his clutch or if it's something else. But yeah, it was smoking for a good amount.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he could probably smelt it too, because I can't imagine that this was odor-free.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm not sure.
But yeah, he was a man on a mission, and he ended up coming in second. Jed Lawrence won a Daytona. He also did a really, really good job. However, he did his signature thing on like the second to last lap. He almost threw the whole race again. I don't know. I think maybe towards the end of the race, his focus kind of is off. But yeah, I'm like, you need to get that under control, because you've cost yourself a couple of wins now at this point. And of course, he's still a rookie, but still like, this is like an ongoing, topic with him.
But I mean, he did race a solid race.
Absolutely.
Also, Chase Sexton had finally a little bit of a better race. Apparently, this week he was also allowed to practice again or ride the bike during.
Or practice at his usual schedule.
Yes, exactly.
And he said he was like at 85% recovery with his hand.
Which I'm so glad. So, because I mean, he ended up in third.
Yes.
So, which was nice to see him back on the podium. He
Absolutely.
was in there fighting. Also, there was a lot of back and forth with him and Eli. And then also, I think, with Cooper Webb a little bit. So that was really fun to see. Unfortunately, Aaron Plessinger didn't have as great of a week.
He actually was one of the ones who actually had probably the only crash that happened this weekend. Or the one that I could remember at the moment, you know. Plessinger, he just hit, I guess, his landing was off, and then he ended up actually being catapulted off of his bike. And his bike going left, and he went straight.
Yes.
And then fortunately, he got up right away because he landed pretty well, you know. And then, but however, he had to let everyone pass, and then he had a hard time getting the bike back up.
Because it was on a hill, essentially. So it was,
and then he was also on the opposite side on how he would usually get onto the bike, so it didn't make it easier on him. So he ended up coming in, I think,
it was 18th. Yeah.
So it was tough, but it was good to see that, like, his fighting spirit, you know, that he was like, okay, I'm gonna get back on the bike, and then he had to go quote unquote into the pits. They had to fix something on his bike, and
which costs just so much time.
That would cost then so much time that he was not able to make that up again, because he ended up being then down a lap or so, and you just can't make that up.
No,
you just can't.
But I thought it was a really, really fun race. The audience in Daytona, which I feel like several of the riders pointed out, is absolutely wild.
Yeah, and it's also Florida, so it makes sense.
Yeah, so even post race, like the interviews, the people were just going crazy. So
they're so loud too.
And they even stole Jet's goggles.
Yeah, but he let them take it because
But it was like I had not seen it in any of our 6 or whatever how many races that we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Because they've gotten the closest, I feel like, to the audience that they have.
Yeah, because they go straight up to the audience, and I hadn't seen that in any other race.
Yeah, exactly.
Usually they ride along the side, but there it seems like they have an area specifically for the riders and the fans to interact, which is really cool.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought it was really cool, but it was just like, the people were like, wow, and then just immediately took the goggle off. But I guess you want a souvenir, so might as well get the best one you can get.
Then I wanted to also quickly talk about Kenny.
Oh.
He ended up coming 5th. So he had a better race than last week. But I think he kind of just like we've heard that I guess the bike that he has isn't the best anyways.
Yes.
But he was fighting around 4th place for a while. But then Cooper Webb came in and snatched it up. I was trying to tell Cooper Webb to stay away from Kenny.
Yeah, just keep
your distance, but he wasn't listening to me, so I don't know. Maybe I'll have to send an angry email or something like that.
Yeah, but at least he's further up this time round. And then
Malcolm also placed in the points again, 2 races in a row, which was also nice because his brother was commentating the race. So it was cool that he made it into the points because we've talked about it. He's the man with the wrong time, wrong place.
Yeah, wrong place, wrong time all the time. Jet Lawrence is still the overall points leader in the 450 category. Second is Cooper Webb. Then we have Eli Tomac, Chase Sexton, Ken Rockshin. Our boy is now 5th. And then Aaron Plessinger, unfortunately, went a little bit down in points just because of his little bit of unlucky race this time around.
Happens.
But yeah, it was overall a very exciting race.
Per usual.
Per usual. Yes, exactly. We have another one coming up next week. I believe they're going to be in Alabama.
Alabama, okay.
Then next week, so also still East Coast, as we know, since West Coast is on a little bit of a break.
I kind of am missing the West Coast guys. Because I'm like, oh, I wonder what Levi is up to or what Joe is doing, you know. I'm sure they're in practice, but I just like miss seeing those names on the screen.
Because we're a lot more familiar with them now. So now I'm getting the hang of our East Coast boys, McAdoo and Deegan and
Vial, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So it's nice to get familiar with them a little bit more. And also I'm just curious to see who we'll be seeing in the 450 in the future. So yeah, I'm very excited to keep watching this. But I think that sums up everything about AMA Supercross this week.